let's get started. So we are doing pricing in the news. We've got fun topics today. For people watching, this is a review of recent headlines that seemed both interesting and relevant to discuss roundtable style. So we've got Jeet, Pete, and Adnan from our leadership team. They're subject matter experts. And then we're reviewing these headlines for trends, predictions, and just general implications from mostly B2C topics. First up, so this is CNBC. The headline is McDonald's and Crocs are releasing a line of $75 shoes inspired by Grimace and the Hamburglar. So there's a couple things about this. First of all, I think this kind of collaboration will never die, but Crocs journey has been kind of interesting. They had this big IPO in 2006, and I didn't realize that they've done, I'm not a Croc person, but they've done tons of these drops. Like if you're in this world, this is like Nike. So people get really into it. It's all about the drop. So the scarcity of it, like they did their own, what were some of these? Like they had Marvel, Barbie, like they've had many of these over the last few years, and they kind of dipped and then came back up when things, it seems to me like when things turned into more athleisure. So it's like they're so ugly, but if you're into them, you're into them. So anyway, there's a lot to this one, but maybe the drop is a place to start, like this style of trend for companies like this. What do you think?
Well, I think collaboration is a great thing, right? We talk about it in pricing power, in our company's ability to execute, collaborating with other companies and collaborating with your supply chain, your resellers, what have you. It's a great way to increase stickiness with your customers. It's a great way to spark demand and to create unique value. So these guys have figured it out that these collaborations are great. They have sort of a cult-like following. So it's nice to do these collaborations because you get a pop every time you do a collaboration. Then they limit the supply that goes out into the market, which helps boost the prices. It's like those Japanese whiskeys. You limit the supply, even though you're making a ton of them, and your prices go up. It's just normal supply demand. So I think it's great, and I think they'll do really well. I think they're above $1 billion now, aren't they? For a small,
yeah, they're doing.
Yeah, and it's funny. I see kids wearing more pajamas to school than ever before, and these kids are like all wearing Crocs as they're going in. So they definitely found their niche market, and they're doubling down on it, which I think is great and smart.
I get super excited about these. It's just super cool. I love kind of that nicheness of the market. I think, yeah, you said it well, where Crocs was born out of what was a niche, but now it does feel like they're just going broader and broader, right? When you see folks out there at my kid's school, for example, it's either sneakers or Crocs, and that's pretty much all that they're wearing. So the fact that they have these new collaborations, whether it's like the Hamburglar or Star Wars or whatever else, just kind of like builds that out. And like in many ways, it can be akin to the various types of Jordans out there, right? Like the North Carolina Jordans out there. I think they sold for $20,000 recently on eBay, and that points to the scarcity of the product itself for something that is in high demand. So it is kind of fun to have these two worlds colliding, where you get to see these cool shoes that I'm passionate about, as well as the pricing aspect of it. So I think you're right. It's a fun thing for them to continue to do, whether it's Disney, McDonald's, or whatever else they start to carve out.
They did a limited edition with Balenciaga.
Oh boy, high end.
Yeah.
Is there a Supreme one?
Well, the highest number that I saw, Post Malone did like a version or whatever, a drop, and this is like takes you to the whole reseller market, but some of his clogs are going for like $1,000 from his the one that they did. I thought it was crazy.
Post Malone, like Karl Malone from the Utah Jazz.
What? Post Malone? Stop. Kidding me. Oh my God.
My only comment on this story is that, hey, just smart on Crocs. I mean, this is like the trend of random McDonald's characters getting more popular, like the Grimace shakes, and then you have the TikTok trends of kids drinking them and morbidly but funnily pretending to die. And
Yeah.
then also Crocs, just in general, just to show how great of a business it is, like how high margin these plastic cheap things sell for. Like I got a pair of Crocs to gift a few years ago, and they were the wrong size. They were too big. So I just wrote, whatever, exchange form or whatever. They asked what the size was, and they just sent me the new ones. Didn't even want the old ones back because it was more expensive for them to ship it than it was for them to. So hey, pro tip: if you want a pair of Crocs for free, just ask to exchange the pair you don't yet have.
Like, forget it, just keep them.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Be interested, like so there's some, I mean, TikTok is kind of its own topic and we don't even have to get into it, but the Grimace milkshake thing, I'm sure was behind, because that thing got so much attention, so many views. And I think B2B, you don't see a ton of B2B companies doing a lot on TikTok, but they're trying to do more. There's like TikTok for business, like Adobe is a good example. They do like tutorials and things, but it's all very designer specific, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be interesting to see how that opens up more too over time, because these trends can like have such, like, just look at Barbie. Not that started in TikTok, but like something that's so content specific can take root on so many different companies and products and stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of integrated marketing, right? And if you collaborate like they're doing, the chances of you going viral just doubles because you've got multiple Croc fans, and you've got McDonald fans, you've got Grimace fans. You just, it's I think it's smart marketing the way in this day and age.
All right, let's talk about WeWork. So next headline is Wall Street Journal: co-working isn't dead, but it will be less corporate.
Yeah.
There's kind of like two parts to this. One is WeWork finally declaring bankruptcy. They were still opening a lot of locations and using big discounts somewhat recently to try to bring on customers. But I guess there's two parts to the story. One is like the general issues with WeWork. And then the second thing is how all these competitors are kind of swooping in and changing how they respond to people's interests with co-working. So maybe we start with WeWork in general. Yeah. Everything that happened since their filing, because they're filing. Did you see the documentaries on Hulu? And there were two of them. Sure. Or one was more acting and the other was more documentary style.
Yeah.
All right. So where do we start with this one?
I guess my only comment is, you've probably heard other people say this too, but oftentimes in commercial real estate, the third owner is like the one who makes money. It's like a hotel gets started, it loses money, it goes bankrupt, someone else buys it, doesn't quite get there, and then the third owner does it. I feel like WeWork's on the third iteration. And I think they're just in trouble because they didn't really have ownership of many assets. So that was like an asset light model. That was a good thing, but they signed up for these 10-year, 20-year, whatever it was, leases at ridiculously high rates before the bottom dropped out in the market. And they're just obligated to way more than they can ever hope to receive from these leases. I think for a lot of the WeWork co-working spaces, it's not a bad model, like where everyone's going to be working remotely more than they were pre-pandemic. So there's a market for that. I think they just got over their skis on how much they committed to. And so bankruptcy will allow them to unwind a lot of the ones that are totally unprofitable and then figure out which ones to keep or renegotiate, which, landlords aren't going to have a great alternative to renegotiating because it'll either stay vacant or be like 50% off the lease, or worse. Because they're like the whole building in some cases. It's going to be hard to rent out that kind of volume to these markets.
I feel like commercial real estate, to your point, is in a bit of a strange spot coming out of COVID, with people wanting to go back to the office, but in a very different way than what we were used to. So the value there is absolutely value, and that's illustrated by the market demand, and people appreciate being in person. They just want to do it in a different way, which means that the value of itself of that is unknown. So to your point, they got in early, and they got in with the assumption that the value is presumably higher than what people are purchasing at today. But the model is there. It's just how much demand and how much are people willing to pay for it. I personally do appreciate models like that because in the way that we as a company work and engage with other folks, it is often helpful, and you see a range of different competitors pop up in this space, which means, again, the market is there.
Yeah, I think they made a fundamental error. I think they discovered a market, which is the right market, like the both of you are saying. But the error they made, I think, is they became a real estate company rather than a technology or a platform. And I think if they were a technology or a platform, they would have had more longevity. And the reason I'm saying it is because there's lots of localization of this space. There's unused capacity everywhere, all around us, everywhere. So if they became more of a tech play where they would take a coffee shop and rent out a couple of spots in a coffee shop, or take a car dealership where you spend 3 hours waiting for a car and you rent out a couple of spots, whatever it is, you find locations like that. You can even have verticals. I think the article talked about a great one that I enjoyed, which was She Space, which is company that was targeting women entrepreneurs, which I thought was great. It's a great niche vertical, so you can localize yourself a little bit to all these different sort of specific ways that people might be encouraged to go in and be around a community. You can set up those communities. So that's a different business model and play versus like, I'm going to own 75 buildings all around, the city of Phoenix. Phoenix is going to go on a downturn. Then what do I do with all that capacity? Because it's my capacity now that I'm not getting revenue for. I think that's a terrible model for this type of a business. I think it's the tech play and the vertical play is a lot more profitable, and I think we're going to see it'll become more and more vast. And I'm sure there's going to be, in New York already, we've got like social clubs and things like that pop up. So we're going to see more and more of it.
You just reminded me, Scott Galloway on the Pivot Pod with Kara Swisher, he was saying that the Four Seasons model, they have like one flagship property in Toronto they own, and they just license the Four Seasons brand and get like a 9% rev share of every other location. And it's like no risk for them.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I think that's and I'm not saying that's the right model for every industry or vertical, but I think for something like WeWork, holding that much asset on your books with market volatility, when you haven't made the market yet from a capacity perspective. How do you hold that much asset on your books when you haven't make the market yet? I don't get that.
Yeah. You have branding guidelines, you license it out, and then you benefit. Yeah.
It's like Uber saying, "Hey, I'm going to go buy every car that's out there, and I'm going to Uber it out." That makes sense.
They came out like so hot, where it was like, "We're going to change the world."
Yeah,
and it was like so out there. In their filing, they made up all these different terms that weren't real terms.
Yeah,
there were a lot of things that happened there. Yeah,
so close. They were so close. It's just that was a foundational error.
Yeah. All right. Next one, this is CNBC. The hot word for CEOs on earnings calls is choiceful. So this was referenced. So first of all, so far in 2023, choiceful has appeared in 15 quarterly earning calls for S&P 500 companies, up from just 2 in 2021. So this is like, I don't know, maybe we start with where have you seen this come up in client calls more? Where have you heard this word?
I have not heard that word, and I haven't. I hate to say it, I haven't read the article. How are they defining choiceful?
It's a euphemism for discerning, or people will spend less and choose where to spend their money. But my take is that they say choiceful because it puts a positive spin on it, and nobody knows what it means. So it's like delivering bad news wrapped in a
right. It's not a real word. First of all, this word is not in the dictionary. However, people are using it more. It says describe consumer spending behavior and their own company strategies is the context that they're using it in. But I think to your point, Pete, yeah, it's like it's definitely an odd one.
So Pete, it's like the company going, hey, we didn't get chosen by the consumer, so we're not choiceful.
Yeah, consumers will be more choiceful about their purchase behavior, basically. So it's a way of saying, we're going to face some headwinds, but you say this word and nobody knows what it means. So it's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't ding the stock. Choiceful's fine. Can we be the choice they choose? In which case, maybe we'll still win.
That does sound like more of an earnings call tactic than an actual business tactic, because I have not heard that from any of my clients, at least.
Yeah, I think the word itself, it doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue, but that aside, the way I view it is it points to the optionality companies are offering customers when they're making purchasing decisions, and is a mechanism to start to give them options when they're changing prices so that they can influence customer in the right way. So
Adnan, if they mean, like, as from in our world, good, better, best, options for our clients, then that makes sense to me, right? Because I mean, we do that day in and day out every day. So is that the direction that they're going, is to offer customers more choices?
Yeah, so I think so one of the phrases within the article was inflation has changed customer behavior. So when we are rolling out price increases, we are allowing customers to be choiceful amidst these price increases.
Oh, I see. But that makes perfect sense to me.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we see that all the time, right? Which is consumers, or not consumers, in a B2B setting, even in a B2B setting, when the company, your customer, has a choice and has some control over usage, their price sensitivity tends to be less. So, we see that as a benefit to offer choices. The price sensitivity of that large price point is it's not really there, because if I'm making this up, if you say you're going to charge $5 a data pull, and you go, oh, I'll limit my data pull so I can limit my cost, then the sensitivity isn't there, compared to another company that goes, it'll be 99 cents a data pull, minimum of 400,000 data pulls. That $5 all of a sudden, is not that bad. You feel like you can do it. But in a couple of years, if you look at your usage base, it's probably much more than the other company was going to give. But having said that, that makes sense to me now. Now that's a little bit better.
I mean, it's definitely still like kind of an odd selection.
Word. Yeah.
It's not using choice.
Yeah.
It is an odd usage of a word that doesn't exist for like all corporate kind of forward-facing stuff. But I get the intent of what you're saying too, Adnan.
That's great.
Weird. Okay. Next one, Forbes. Okay, Amazon enters car business. Customers can order Hyundais online starting next year. So this is like to cut out kind of the middleman. You're still buying the car from the dealership, but you don't have to go there in person. So you can order it through Amazon and then either go pick it up or have it delivered to you, which it's interesting because I first kind of went into like the generational thing where I'm like, I would be more likely to have a better sense of what kind of car I want. So it's good for the future for people that are like less like, I want to touch it, I want to see it kind of buyers. But I bet there are people at all ages who are like, they know what kind of car they want and they don't want to go like deal with a dealership. It could make things so much easier for some people.
This is interesting. I think so from Amazon's perspective, this is an opportunity for them to move up market and go to these higher value purchases. I think the question that this begs is there any significant demand for people to pull the trigger on such a massive purchase like a car via Amazon without having touch and felt it? And I think for me personally, the trend is, you can go out there and do all kinds of research on a car, watch YouTube videos, read reviews, talk to friends, perhaps even see one in person at a car show. And at the point where you're willing to make a purchase, you already know what you want. It's just a matter of going out there and pulling the trigger to purchase it. So if Amazon is able to enhance that car buying experience, which historically can be met with a lot of friction, and reduce that friction, then it can be a good play. But it is a pretty significant change in behavior from what folks are used to.
The other thing that was interesting to me is Amazon stock went down when they made this announcement and Hyundai's went up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense. It's great for Hyundai. They're like, hey, we're with Amazon, you know?
Pete, were you gonna say something?
I was just saying, another thing I'd read was about just the, you can basically buy this car using Alexa, and then Alexa is also integrated within that Hyundai model, as well. So pretty much then you can access Amazon shopping through that car, just like one more place that you can kind of go back to your main business. And I was just thinking about, yeah, maybe there's not going to be a big new volume that Amazon gets from that, just because maybe, I mean, how many people are going to buy this car through this channel? But it is an interesting thought about it's almost like a vertical integration for Amazon, or a way just to, you know, even though it seems like they're getting into cars, it's actually a way for them to spread their main technology or business into new places.
Yes. So I find this to be not very interesting on one side, and then super interesting on the other side, because it's not interesting to me because Rivian, Tesla, all these other cars are going direct. So going direct, you know, I can buy one on BMWUSA.com, right? I mean,
Yep.
all these things
Right.
that, you know, there's a direct channel already, and I think it is minimizing the need for dealerships. Therefore, dealerships are right now, over the last 10 years, and Adnan and I know this from a project, they're going through huge consolidations. So that's how you get these large conglomerates that buy, you know, 200 dealerships across the country, so they can kind of move around inventory and they can have the portfolio method of making money. So that makes sense to me, that the value of dealerships are going down and becoming more experience centers. So you can go in and experience the car and then purchase direct and get whatever you want within a short period of time. And even the used market is direct now with Carvana and others, where it just comes in, they'll pick up your old car and deliver the new car that you bought. So to me, that's not very interesting. What's interesting to me is if they're able to capture the moment of transaction for a Hyundai on an Amazon platform, what does that mean? You know, to me, when we buy a car as a consumer, there's a lot of other ways to make money. So there is the financial aspect of it. There's also car insurance. There's also sort of, you know, your maintenance of the car. There's like a lot of other additives and contracts that go on top of the actual transaction of the car. So I'm curious to see what Amazon's future vision is, where they are kind of looking at it as, yes, you're purchasing a vehicle through them. And yes, what Pete said, the integration with Alexa and all the other Amazon tools are very, very important. But I'm also wondering, just like they're getting into pharmaceutical, they're getting into health insurance. I'm wondering if car insurance is one of the angles that they're going for here, and other sort of ancillary offshoots off this one transaction that's out there. That to me is a little bit more interesting to see what Amazon's overall strategy is, because we all know there's inefficiency in pharmaceutical, there's inefficiencies in health insurance, car insurance. All of these things have inefficiencies that a tech company can go in and drive value pretty quickly if they can get around some of the political and government, you know, red tape and issues and laws and stuff like that that's there to create complexity. So to me, that's a little bit more interesting.
We'll see. We'll see where they take it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Seems like a good pausing point for now. And we'll pick up next time. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks.
All right,
Good.
guys.
Bye.